This is the Headless Marketing Show. Hi, I'm Alex Belding, the co-founder of Webrick. Welcome to the Headless Marketing Show, a podcast all about digital marketing and e-commerce with a focus on emerging marketing technologies and methods. In each episode, we talk to marketing leaders as they outline their thoughts and visions around modern marketing and the future of the web. If you are interested in building great customer experiences online and creating strong digital marketing strategies, then this is a podcast you don't want to miss. The Headless Marketing Show is brought to you in part by our sponsor, Webrick. Webrick is a managed website service provider and delights their customers with custom websites that rank well in search and start conversations with their visitors. From e-commerce to blogging, Webrick has the right service level to meet your needs and exceed your expectations. Visit their website today to learn more at www.webrick.com. That's Webrick, WEBRIQ.com. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you find your podcasts. Over the past decade, e-commerce has grown from about 4% of U.S. retail spending to now over 15%. This growth is only speeding up, especially with the advent of COVID-19. By all accounts, the trend line of online sales and digital commerce is steepening. In the not too distant future, the majority of commerce will take place online. The technical world of e-commerce is shifting away from monolithic systems and traditional e-commerce platforms and into a new era of API-first e-commerce. This new method for creating and deploying e-commerce is what is being called headless commerce. I'm really excited about this topic and today's episode. We've done a few shows on headless content management, but there is a whole other side to the headless coin, especially when we talk about headless commerce. Fundamentally, headless commerce is very similar to headless content management. By decoupling your commerce, you can place your commerce experience anywhere and any way that you want. It is really about having total control over your commerce experiences and helping give the best user experience to your customers. In today's show, I sat down and spoke with Andrew Underwood, who is the co-founder of Commerce.js. They are a headless commerce startup. We talk through some of the big concepts of headless commerce and then also just the e-commerce industry at large. If you've never heard of headless commerce, this will be a great place to get a bunch of information. If you're more familiar with headless commerce, you'll find Andrew has a bunch of great details and insights that will also be useful and intriguing even to the indoctrinated. As always, be sure to check the show notes and get going on kind of boosting your research into today's topic, headless commerce. There will be links and more information there. But without further ado, let's bring in Andrew and get the show on the road. Today, I am joined by Andrew Underwood. He is the co-founder and growth officer of Commerce.js. Commerce.js is a headless API-first commerce platform. They help brands and businesses build experience-centric commerce. Andrew, thank you for being on the show today.
Alex, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, marketing people may have never heard the phrase headless commerce. Would you just give us a quick crack at what headless commerce is?
Sure. Yeah, there are a few interpretations of it, but essentially it's the decoupling of the front end presentation level that you have of a website and the back end operational level that you have. So traditional e-commerce platforms are coupled, and so the front end and the back end are closely coupled and tied together. And was originally a good way, a solid way to build a website and to run a business. But as the front end landscape has changed and a lot of customer expectations are shifting rapidly, there's been a real need to decouple the front end from the back end, and so that's essentially what headless commerce is. It's that ability to have different tooling and services running on your front end, having a different suite of services on the back end, and it's all really facilitated by APIs. That's the magic that allows this decoupling and personalization.
And then from the marketing world, like, why would somebody want to decouple, right? Like, what does that give them the ability to do?
Yeah, well, and like headless has been around a while. It sort of first started in the content management space, but only in the last 4 or 5 years has headless commerce really picked up. But ultimately, going headless for an e-commerce business and for marketers gives you much more control over the front-end experience that you offer your customers. You can really optimize the performance, the personalization, the design, the flow of how you help your customers discover your products and ultimately convert them. It's much easier to experiment, and sort of the return on investment around experimenting and trying different things is much lower because you have this control, and it doesn't take 6 months to develop a new experience. You can sort of roll something out quite quickly, and just much more flexibility on the front end experience, but also controlling your back end operations and what services you use. And that's something at Commerce.js that we focus on a lot, is sort of bringing your best of breed back end services to make up the sort of ideal business stack for you.
Yeah, that's how I try to describe it to folks, is like, yeah, we can really focus on an amazing user experience on the front end, but then so often, some of the back end integrations and just the business model and the way that you want to, pick, pack, ship, and otherwise run the delivery of your commerce or your e-commerce has a lot to like with headless commerce as well. While we were getting ready to kind of get into the show today, you mentioned something that I think we should really talk about, which is, there's a lot of sameness going on around on the internet, right? And I think some people would argue that's a good thing, right? Like I've actually had conversations with brands that love that they look exactly like every other Shopify website out there, right? Like you can basically tell when you're in a Shopify checkout, like this is it, right?
Yeah.
I have a deep opinion on like how boring that's becoming and everything else. But from your experience or from your approach, especially being experience oriented, what is sameness doing to the marketing world and to the user experience on the internet? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it complicated?
Yeah, it's quite a deep question, and it really depends, I guess, whether you're an incumbent or you're a new player in the market. But I think the first distinction is sameness from a sort of an aesthetic standpoint. So similar layouts across e-commerce websites or just websites in general, similar flows, and I think sort of aesthetic sameness is not great, but familiarity in terms of what people are used to, and sort of when they hit your site, there's a sense of I know what to do here. I know that the cart will be in the top right corner, or that the buy now button will be at the below the fold, or whatever it may be, and in the checkout. So I think familiarity is important and good, and you want to stick relatively within the lines on that front. But in terms of the sort of homogeneity of the experience, I think that's something that we're looking to change, and we're hoping to see a much more broad spectrum of experiences and brands being able to really, show who they are in a digital context. And I often talk about a retail environment, and when you walk into a store, you're instantly hit by the decor, the smell, the presence of the retail stuff, all these little touches that in a physical space you can sort of exercise and make the customer, when they walk in, feel comfortable or feel like they're part of your brand. And e-commerce and in digital experiences, we've got a long way to go, and obviously much more immersive sort of metaverse or virtual experiences are helping with this. But even just on a web page or a mobile experience, there's a lot that can be done around helping customers feel like this is a unique and different experience. I'm really enjoying this because it's, I'm getting little dopamine hits when I open this product, or I'm something fun is happening. It's playful, and that's kind of what we like to see, and what we're hoping solutions like Commerce.js really enable brands to be able to execute on, because that's exciting, and that's how the global commerce marketplace should be. It should be different. It should feel like, when you're looking for a product and you're on someone's business site, you should really feel like it's not like an Amazon experience. I think Amazon is the antithesis of that, and that's Amazon is really where your brand goes to die. But for some businesses, it's a fantastic channel, and that they've got so many people there at the marketplace. But if you really want your brand to shine and stand out and be different, you really have to do that through the experience that you offer your customers.
Yeah, like when you brought up Amazon, like I always think it's kind of like this transactionability of your website, right? Like, is your website just about the transaction, or is your website about the shopping experience and what it's like to be a human trying to buy stuff on the internet, right? Because like, two quick anecdotes, like since COVID happened, right? Like, we've been shopping online way more frequently than most people, right? I mean, that's just what happened. And my wife has been buying clothes, and she hates the experience, like absolutely hates it, because you don't know what's going to fit, like it's really hard to ascertain, if this brand's size 8 is the same as what she's used to with this brand's over there. And there's just, the way a clothes hang on a model is not the same way the clothes are going to hang on you. How do I have an experience that gives me comfort to buy? So oftentimes she doesn't buy anything. Like, she just spends like 6 hours going through the internet, and then throws her hands in the air and says, I don't know what to do, which is not what anybody wants, right? And then on the flip side, we went to Amazon just recently, and I quickly went through their, it's like you can check out in like 6 seconds. It's like so fast. And I don't know if I screwed up or if they shipped the wrong thing. I still can't figure it out. But I ordered little flotation devices, like life jackets for our infants, and I got boat seats. Like it was not even like remotely close. And I don't know if I just flubbed the transaction. More than likely that's what happened. But because I was shopping fast, and my wife said it's this product, go buy it, and we got something way different. So now we got to go through the return process, and
whole nother headache. I think there's a whole spectrum of the types of purchases you make online. Everything from consumables like toilet paper or something small that you buy frequently, and which doesn't require a lot of mental bandwidth to sort of go through that process, all the way up to luxury items that are above $1,000. That's where you really want to make a considered purchasing experience. I don't know that the Amazon style and that sort of one-click checkout approach even is what those kind of brands and those purchasing experiences need. They need that. You really want to feel like you're investing, and that you want to make sure that it is worth the dollars I'm going to spend. I want this maybe to not be drawn out, but to make me feel human, make me feel unique, and not just an order number, but actually an individual where this product or service is meeting my needs. And that's what e-commerce is super interesting, right? Because you have this broad spectrum of purchasing intent, and ultimately what the customer wants, and there's a really broad spectrum of tools and platforms out there to cater to that. But I think we've got a lot of businesses out there using sort of a one-size-fits-all approach when e-commerce has matured so much in the last year and a half. There's going to be this, like, you have to really understand who your customers are, what they want from your brand, and then picking the right tools to make sure that you can meet and manage their expectations in the right way.
Well, and like you said, like a one size fits all approach, like most of these brands have the capacity to generate more content that's way more unique to their brand. And yet, if you go across all of their competitors, they all look the exact same. So how do you differentiate yourself, right? Like that's what I think the API first and like headless movement can really provide, right? Is like, yes, we can build a user experience that's great for the user, but we can also just help break out and be, a different experience, right? Like almost like, like you can go have the white background with the square tile and the, the carousel and the price and the buy now, or you can walk into a wardrobe and experience a personalized fitting room. Some people are going to just go for the transaction, right? It's a $7 t-shirt. I don't care. But at the same token, like if you want to stand out, not only can you build a great experience, but you can stand out, right? You can actually, just drive more revenue by being different, especially as you said, right? It's matured. Because COVID may not have changed, but it certainly sped it up, right? Like we were always growing in e-commerce, but then it was like a huge tidal wave of growth.
Yeah, and I think what's also super interesting is, as part of that growth, is that a lot of larger businesses that maybe weren't looking at e-commerce as, oh, this is super important, have now awoken, and they are these big brands, like whether it's Colgate, Adidas, Canyon Bikes, they've all gone direct to consumer. They were all investing millions into their e-commerce, and that's, I think a lot of D2C brands and e-commerce folks had taken that for granted, that there was sort of these giants asleep, whereas now they've all awoken and they've got, big budgets and a lot of ad spend that they can put behind. And so, you're now competing with those larger brands. But yeah, it's really, but I guess, like the tools that we're building out really enable a business of any size to create that unique experience and really get that mind share within the market or the customer to say, yeah, I mean, I buy shoes online all the time, but hey, when I bought this brand of shoes, they had just an amazing product discovery flow, or, something to do with a social experience where, it was all kind of user-generated content, but then I could still buy from it, and it felt very immersive, and I was sort of attaching myself to the influences that I was following. I think there's so much that brands can do when they sort of break outside the traditional tooling and platforms that are out there. I think and it's like, even we get excited and surprised when we speak to sort of creative and implementation folks, because when we tell them what they can do with a solution like Commerce.js, they really start to you hear their brains whirling, and they start to throw out ideas, and it's like, yeah, that's possible, and we hadn't even thought of that. And that's exciting, I both think for them, but also for customers to be able to experience brands and have those kind of purchasing experiences.
Well, and by decoupling, right, you have so much more control of the whole thing. There's, I mean, some people will complain, right? You mean that there's no decisions made for me? I have to go. I had a gentleman. You mean to tell me I have to build the whole damn front end? Yeah, like to spec, whatever you want, right? Isn't that great? And some people see that as a giant, oh my gosh, I've got to, but at the same token, the sky's the limit. You can come up with all cool things. And you mentioned something that I think is really important to note. It's like, this isn't necessarily for giant companies only. And in fact, it might be easier to implement this stuff if you're a smaller or more nimble organization, because you don't have the levels of bureaucracy that you have to go through. I mean, I know Webrick, we approach some customers and it takes them, 7 months to get through just a scoping exercise, whereas like a smaller org, 2 days, we're ready to go, So there's some beauty of this. It's a massive advantage. Yeah.
To be able to move quickly and sort of have the autonomy to go, you know what, we're not going to wait for this templated platform to release this feature or to enable us to do this. We're just going to do it ourselves. But, obviously the requirements to do so and sort of take on that level of control, and, there is an element of maintenance and technical requirements that you either have to use an agency or have in-house. it's not for everyone, but the cost to serve and create these headless experiences is going down like month over month.
Right.
I think if you've been in e-commerce a long time, there like microsites used to be like great, but also really expensive to get out, and so the return on that was like, is it worth it? But and just before the call, we were talking about sort of these experience builders, and that the cost to serve them is like almost free now. So you don't have to launch your brand with a very robust curatorial experience that you would typically see on a standard Shopify site. Maybe you just want a simple landing page which explains the product, has a bit of early validation from some customers, and then the ability for customers to buy. And it can be that streamlined. You validate that, and then if that takes off, then you build out a more curatorial style web experience. But it's definitely not just for enterprise, and that's an exciting area that we play is really bringing headless to the smallest players of the market, and helping also not the most senior developers create these kind of experiences. We've got student developers coming out of boot camps that are creating fully headless API driven experiences, which is really cool to see, because they're coming at it from a fresh perspective as opposed to this traditional e-commerce of like, oh, that sounds really hard, I don't know, just stay here. But yeah.
Well, that's a good point. So like this show, the Headless Marketing Show, really about talking to marketers, but Headless generally has it rings with developers, right? I mean, like in your experience, like talking to new customers or just being out there kind of evangelizing, the API first movement, what are some things that you guys have done or noticed, or just any advice on, kind of opening up API first, Jamstack, some of these more developer-y headless terms to the marketing world, and getting them to really understand and buy in on what this movement is about?
Yeah. And I think that's really important, that sort of marketing teams of the future are skilled up and aware of this stuff, because that's kind of who we're building our product for, and we see this convergence between developers and marketers getting a little more blurry, and that marketing teams of the future probably will have front-end developers, or marketers will be technically savvy, and that they can create these experiences. And so I think from our observations, when it comes to headless, lots of businesses and marketers want headless, and they want the benefits and capabilities that it provides around personalization, experimentation, multiple channels, meeting the customer where they are, but they often have no idea how to get there. And so that's where we start on the sort of education journey around, cool, well, what are some of the things that you're wanting to do, and what problems are you facing with your current either marketing or business stack, and then walking them through really clear and simple examples of how this is done, and then lifting the veil on that and saying, this took a junior developer 3 days to do. It's not that hard. And then we're even doing it to the point where we are creating a few products for marketers, no code landing page builders with built-in carts and checkouts, and this puts them in the driver's seat, because we've really felt that headless was, like you said, very much geared towards developers, very enterprise. So your big brands that have got millions to spend on projects, but we really want to shift that focus to non-developers and to smaller teams to be able to get the benefits and really ride this wave of the next generation to create content and to sell.
Yeah, and that's and that's what I think the API first movement. I mean, it's been building. Like we've been doing this for a while, and it used to be, I would joke, like I could count on one hand the number of people that would understand Jamstack when I would introduce it to them, right? And now it's definitely more pervasive in the marketplace.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's kind of like a tipping point where the marketing world is actually full bore into it, versus right now I think they're still kind of tepidly sitting on the sidelines, kind of watch and wondering, or And that's the whole point of this podcast, is to really inform the marketing world, like, this is something to pay attention to and get excited about.
Yeah.
And what was fun is you said, like, a lot of the folks are already talking about this, right? Like, I had a meeting with a chief revenue officer at the beginning of this week, and he literally described personalized e-commerce on the call, right? He was just like, I want this, I want my CRM data to it. And I was like, well, yeah, you're talking about, headless commerce and a digital experience platform. I've never heard of any of that stuff. Well, that's what you need. Let's have a conversation, So the marketing world is definitely there. They just, need to, that famous line, like, you have to ask the right questions to get the answers you're looking for versus just asking any question.
Yeah.
And I think, and a lot of marketing teams don't necessarily have access to, the development pool that they think they do. A lot of times they're working with the freelance community or the WordPress community or the Shopify community. And they're talking to folks that are entirely indoctrinated in a specific worldview, which is, again, how we end up with sameness, right? Like everybody is trying to build the exact same checkout experience. Everybody is trying to build, identical websites versus getting a little bit more avant-garde, really focusing on experience. And if you talk to shoppers, they're begging for it, I mean, certainly.
There's I think what you've touched on there is interesting as well, around sort of it's an ecosystem, not problem, but challenge, in that when headless is inherently more technical than traditional monolithic coupled commerce. And that's why we're excited about what we're building, because it is relatively approachable. So you have a larger pool of developers and agencies to work with, as opposed to, we're specifically, I'm a senior engineer who specializes in headless. In 5 years, it'll be any developer that knows a little bit of a script can build these things. And that's great for the developers, but it's also most valuable for the businesses that want these experiences and can go and find anyone to create that experience. So yeah, that's an interesting part of this kind of journey, and helping marketers sort of start to plant the seeds with the decision makers within their organizations around, we want to do this. It's not going to cost an arm and a leg. There's a growing pool of implementation partners and freelancers that can do this. And then really, I think biggest thing is helping them understand what headless enables you to do. And I think it's partly the sort of product display page and the performance and the site speed. But when you really take control, you can do things all throughout the cart and checkout experience. You can really redefine how you want to convert customers, where you can sort of have notes in the bag, so to say, around little Easter eggs for the customer as they're getting close to purchasing your product, and that's the level of control you get with headless commerce.
Yeah, well, and you just, like, there's something to be said about just owning your own stack as well, right? Like, there's no boogeyman that can show up. Like, for example, like Shopify can just say, nope, we don't want you on our platform anymore, right? Like they could say that on a random Tuesday, and your brand would be gone. You would have no more ability to have your Shopify site. And there are whole industries that have experienced that, where the Shopify let them come on and transact, and then, we decided we don't like CBD anymore, and you're gone, right? Now, if you own your own stack, you don't have to worry about that. And as other businesses have told me before, right? Like, I feel like I have to change my entire operation model to fit into Shopify. You're probably doing it wrong. You probably should own your own stack, and then you can do whatever you want operationally. I do love talking about the user experience, because I think it's the most connected side to revenue, right? Like, the better you can create user experiences, the better, the better you can get to revenue, conversion, all of the things that, like, if it don't make money, it don't make sense in e-commerce, right? So, like, that's really important to have. But there is the delivery side of e-commerce. There is the way that your company is staffed and how your warehouse looks and all of those things that, if it doesn't fit within the confines of a traditional checkout, it's a pain in the butt, And with Headless, it doesn't have to be. It can be whatever you want, which is, I think, another real good reason to own the stack and, kind of go through picking up some of that responsibility, right?
For sure. Yeah. And I think there's always an element of risk around the different off-the-shelf providers you use, whether it's your payment gateway, it's sort of in the same vein where they go, hey, well, you went from like 0 to 1 million in sales in 1 month. Like, hang on a minute, what's going on here? And there's we speak with lots of merchants that are in that camp. They want to be able to have almost a payment gateway vault to recycle through gateways so they don't get turned off. It's the same for your e-commerce provider or anything that sort of touches the financial side of things. There is a sort of safeguarded for good reason. But when you start to go headless, you start to decouple your stack and build it with best of breed services. You're lowering that risk, right? Because not everything is in one big box, which is kind of how I would explain a Shopify or a BigCommerce build, where it's kind of very much you've got to fit it all in here. Whereas when you configure your stack or compose your stack, that's another term that gets thrown around, composable commerce. But when you compose your stack with different services, you can swap them all out individually. And so if you're having an issue with one, you can, just change that out and bring something new in. So I think it's good for risk minimization in the long run for a lot of brands.
Yeah, I think a nice real world analogy for platform commerce is a mall, right? Like, well, I have to be on Shopify because they have a marketplace, or I have to be on Shopify because that's what people expect. And it's like, I have to have my business in a mall because that's where the shoppers are, right? And then a decade later, all of these malls are gone, right? Like this is what happens when you hitch your business to somebody else's idea, is that you're not as flexible, as you said, to adapt, change, update, and just deal with the punches of everyday business, right? And I think marketing understands that very uniquely because they're usually the side of the business to feel the pressure very quickly when things are not going well. It's like, well, we have to maintain all of our investment in sales. We have to maintain all of our investment in operations. Marketing, your head is on the chopping block, quarterly, daily, by the hour, sometimes it seems, right? And so the more control marketers have over making sure that they're driving revenue and creating, the value for themselves in the organization and just for, the directives that they're deploying, Headless makes a ton of sense in that aim as well, right? Because there are not no risks, but the risks are different, and you have a lot more control over the risks, right?
Yeah, I think marketers ultimately get actionability over the business that they're working on or with. When you get this kind of control, it's your ability to efficiently and quickly react to things that are happening in the market, and that's where headless commerce is super great. You could spin up a landing page or an experience that the customers can convert on within a day that is responding to something that just happened in the news or something that a celebrity did, and you want to, maybe a celebrity posted an Instagram photo with your product. You can create a whole experience and a campaign around that by the end of the day. When you've got that kind of control and really customize and personalize and regionalize that experience. So yeah, I think ultimately that actionability that it gives marketers is really exciting. But yeah, always risks in any approach. But yeah, it's exciting to see what the marketing folks do and dream up when the sky's the limit. And I think that's exciting, and that's what commerce needs. It needs big dreams and sort of people really pushing the boundaries, and we're seeing that at this sort of high-end luxury side of e-commerce. People really taking control of their brand narrative and doing things that are bold and different, and I'm looking forward to seeing that happen more and more down the market, with smaller businesses being really tactical and bold, and kind of these guerrilla campaigns that make them stand out and turn heads, and that's what people remember.
Right. Well, and as you kind of to kind of change subjects a little bit, as you kind of look into your crystal ball, or you have maybe a little bit more connection to this than even I do, like content fitting into commerce. It doesn't just have to be pictures and and product description. What are some things that you're seeing folks do with maybe longer form content, or kind of content enabled commerce that is that you think is really intriguing or interesting? Have you any real world examples, or any because I think this is like an element of commerce that is still very, very, very new. And I'm just be curious to hear your kind of thoughts on, it doesn't just have to be a blog post with a product embedded in it. Like, what can you do with longer form content and the shopping experience?
Yeah, I think it is a really, really, really interesting topic. I think traditionally people come at their experience from either their content led, or their commerce led, or they're sort of a hybrid and they're kind of experience led. But I'm seeing this all kind of converging. And again, when you go headless, you are able to sort of have modular and different experiences that span a bunch of different front ends or devices or channels. But something that we're seeing and we're enabling is kind of tailoring your content and commerce experiences based on the customer's purchasing intent. So, for example, if you're coming from a PPC ad off Google, and you click on an ad and then you hit a landing page, the intent to buy it's kind of there, but then it needs to be built a little more. So the purchasing experience that you want to offer a customer in that flow is very different to someone that's organically searched your product, has done some research, probably kind of is already really interested in what you want. Maybe they're still discovering different products that you have. That's a very different flow to someone that's clicked on an ad because it has that thing. They need to then quickly learn about the product, if it's who else is using it, but then also, like, if it's if they like that, to be able to buy that product right then and there. So kind of controlling the funnel a little more to have these streamlined purchasing experiences with a different set of content versus more longer form where you'd add something to a cart, go through that process. And I think understanding the buyer's intent through the different channels and initiatives that you're running really helps to optimize your conversions. And so you're not just putting everyone in the same experience or bucket. You're kind of going, okay, the people that come through this attribution channel, we're going to give them this experience, and then we're going to A/B test that experience to see which one of those works, versus everyone else who organically comes to us or who already knows us goes through this other experience. So I think that's one pretty interesting effect of being able to decouple and take control and sort of basically put a checkout anywhere on a site. I think also just the sort of embedded commerce has got a long way to go, but it's starting to pick up around, whether that's bringing sort of live video demos of your product, or tying it closely to social media or user-generated content. AR, VR has still got a long way to go, but there are some people building some great products out there to enable that for brands. But yeah, essentially, going back to headless, anywhere where you can get a Wi-Fi signal, you can create an experience. So, whether it's a smartwatch, a smart fridge, a bus stop carousel, you can create these experiences that really go where the customer is, and that all of that will take more or less content. But that's where I think marketers get really excited, because some of them it will be, hey, we're going to write this like thought piece, which is really heavy, but then at the end there's the embedded commerce experience and they can buy, versus something that's pops. It's very visual and it has this same conversion outcome. So
well,
yeah.
and your advertising customers are going to interact with your content, like as you said, right? Like if you're stopping somebody in the middle of their social scrolling, getting them to click and land on a page, you have a very different job as a marketer than if you've gotten their attention through organic search or through organic social, right? So one of the things that we've struggled with at Webrick, right, is with a couple of our commerce brands, is we've basically like, hey, like check out this experience for the longer, not the landing page experience that you're going to use for your ad campaigns, but like when using the nav of the site and kind of coming in or through more organic doors, check out this page. And the customer freaked out. They're like, that's not, it doesn't look anything like what we've experienced before. And it's like, well, yeah, but this item is $1,200. They should probably have a much more, consultative experience. And to this day, like those items on their shop still convert terribly, even though, you talk to the marketing manager and he's like, well, in the wholesale channel, that's our best seller. It's like, well, yeah, because you're talking to people that are buying it from, a guy they trust in a shop. It's $1,200, differentiating your experiences even based upon price point could be something you can do with Headless. And it can be hard to kind of like wrap the mind around that, or open that up to, just exploratory means, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like take it if you were buying a Tesla. Imagine buying a Tesla with a one-click checkout. Like no one would do it, and you wouldn't feel good at the end of it, right? You just maybe
immediately have buyer's remorse. Immediately.
Yeah, and you're like, what just happened? And that's what you kind of get on Amazon, where you buy something and you click the if your data is saved, you click the button and it's done. You're like, whoa, was that right? And then like your experience, maybe you bought the wrong thing, but there's this kind of like, it's like that was convenient, but also like it was too convenient. And there are definitely, I think that's those lower value, high frequency purchases that make sense. But others, it's like the customer wants to sort of have that experience where they talk to the retailer assistant and be like, tell me why I should buy this, or I've got questions. And you can really personalize and customize that experience to help them, get confidence and to buy something online. Because I mean, it's still a bit of a miracle that people buy anything online, right? Like you can't actually see it or touch it, and people still get the confidence and the validation and the motivation to buy. So I think that's kind of one of the last bastions of e-commerce is really helping the customer feel like this is a good decision, and that us over there are maybe 20 other similar products out there, but they're on yours, and they should be made to feel like it's worth it, and that having this product is better than anyone else's. And that's, you do that through the experience that you offer, and all the way to when they actually receive and it gets shipped the product. It doesn't end at adding it to the cart. That's kind of just the beginning. It's that full experience.
Right.
That's kind of where our product comes in. It's that pre-checkout discovery, but then cart and checkout experience, because you can have a fully custom checkout experience. Then the post-checkout, like what you do, maybe you tell more of a story around like how the product was made, or what's next, or what some other things you're working on. But then there are a whole bunch of other tools and services out there that do a great job at when the good actually turns up at the customer's doorstep, again, telling that story or creating a new experience for them to learn more about your brand. Or maybe there's a partner business that they work with where there's a complementary product that they might want to explore. So this is kind of how experience-driven shopping online is becoming, and it requires a totally different set of tools and a totally different mindset in how you're going to activate and continue to have a relationship with your customer.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking earlier, and again, like, personalization is a super hot topic, right? Like, it's what a lot of people want. Maybe even necessarily before they understand headless and digital experience platforms and the like. But I'm always kind of cautiously telling people to like, you can do bad personalization very well, right? Like, that's easy. Yeah. So as you talk to customers, well, A, what's your kind of opinion on personalization? How should it be approached? And then B, what are some things that companies should really think about when they do decide to start wading into personalization and creating that kind of experience in their commerce or in their content or in anything?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a there can be a few traps with personalization. You don't want to come across as creepy, I think, is the first thing, right? Where there are some services where you go there and they're like, "Hi, Andrew," and you're like, "How do you know my name?" And that's and like, unless they are a personalization service and they need to convey that, you need to tread that line between relevant and personalized, or like almost intrusive around, hey, you know too much about me. Like, I feel like I'm being watched on this experience. And there's some interesting changes coming around sort of cookies and GDPR and what brands can track around a consumer's behavior. And so there's going to be some interesting changes, and brands will have to sort of really think about how they understand that flow. But I think ultimately personalization is a good thing, because an absence of personalization is sameness, and everything looks the same. It's stripped of any texture or relevance to you. I think personalization can be done from different levels. I think people usually think of like copy and like, oh, it says my name, or it's got something here that shows that I've looked at these previous products. But it can go as deep as, the moment a customer hits your site, you're only showing them products that are available, to be shipped within a convenient time. We have one customer who sells across the US and Europe, but their product is perishable, and so they only display products to the customer based on their IP address that are close enough to a fulfillment warehouse. So there's no, oh, I really like this product, I click on it, and then it's like, oh, we can't ship this to you, or it's not available. Right. So there's none of this sort of poorly managing the customer's expectations. They're doing it right from page load to going, these are just the products that only you can buy, and like, the customer doesn't know any better, and they go, that's right. Great.
They're okay with it, right? Yeah. And it's not, hey, Paul, It's like looking around their shoulder.
It's just got everything that you see here, you can buy, and you'll get it within a 2-day shipping guarantee. And that level of personalization, people, without knowing that, you don't even know it exists, but it actually is really, really valuable for the business and the customer. I think other areas of personalization that are interesting is that you can really hone in on, we know where this customer is. They're in Northern California. We're going to use some Northern California slang in our product description or our landing page. And so it's like, it's sort of a subconscious form of like, hey, we speak your language. Like, this is a product for you, and you can do that. You could do that around the world, around different languages, or just changing the copy, and then you can go to, cool, so certain products, certain line items are in your cart. Maybe if a specific product is in your cart, then your checkout will be slightly different. We've actually got a demo store that does this quite well, and where we're selling a bunch of kitchen tools and sort of cooking products. And if you have one product in your cart, which is like a cooking class, your checkout is different from if you just had the kitchen knives, for example. And so if you have the cooking class in your cart, the checkout starts with a booking module where you book the time that you want to actually take the cooking class. Then you can write a message to the instructor, and then it goes through the traditional checkout flow. that's really easy to do when you can control and personalize that checkout experience. And it's sort of without that control, you would have to like check someone out and then like take them to a calendar booking link, and it would just be
and then you have to chase them and chase them and chase them. Like,
yeah, and then
hey,
people,
it's been 6 months. You bought this class, please
yeah,
schedule. You know,
people don't see something and they close it and they don't know how they can book their class. So it's that kind of personalization around, hey, you just had this product in your, maybe they had a really high value product in their cart, and their cart value is over $500. Maybe you want to add some Easter eggs there, like make the experience nicer for them, because you're like, they're spending a lot of money here. Let's make it worth their while. All the way down to maybe your customers are, maybe you have products for younger customers or older customers, and you could do things where, if it's a product that is more bought by older customers, you can increase the text font or the input fields of the checkout to be easier to read, so higher accessibility for that checkout. That's the kind of personalization which, it's not creepy. It's not being like, hey Alex,
right.
like, I love that you've added some life jackets into your. It doesn't have to be like that. It can just be around making people feel human, like they're speaking to someone.
And subtle. Everything that you've described is subtle.
Yeah.
And a lot of customers are like, yeah, I have all this CRM data. I want to hit them with, I know you like the Mariners, and but like that kind of personalization, I think, needs to be opted into, right? Or at least, privacy first experience needs to be maintained because because of GDPR, because of the cookies, users are getting fed up with being, treated like, ground meat in the sausage casing machine, right? Like they want to have, but at the same token, like some people would absolutely love to have a personalized shopping experience if they've opted into it, right? And then you can do, surveys and, other experiences to pull that data out of them. And now you can build that into the experience. But that's a much, bigger and larger lift than just hitting them with their name and, being super creepy about it, right? And so I like you've actually given me a ton to think about with those subtle ideas, just on the assumed demographics of visitors or IP address. That's all really good information.
Yeah, I think if you've also got like first time customers, there's a threshold of personalization that you can only really reach based on
habitual. You have to get them back. Yeah,
but if you've got returning customers, if they're logged in, you've got some sort of authentication on your site, then you can flex a little more. You can say, hey, you previously bought this, we just launched this product, maybe that's of interest, and you can use some of the data that they gave you in that first place to optimize the experience for the next time. And there are brands that do this really, really well, and then that's where they're, it's the experience that means that people come back, and then you get this kind of tribal culture around a brand, because they're like, these people know me, and I like that because I'm voting my dollars with them, but they're giving me this sort of curated, personalized experience, and I feel like they understand me as a shopper and what my needs are, and I think that's a great thing. So it's there are definitely two sort of dynamics you can play with around personalization.
That was really some of your subtle suggestions are great, because they're things that I hadn't even ever considered. Like that was really, thank you. That was good.
Well, it comes down to kind of the tooling that you have and whether or not you can do that or not. And again, like if you're coming from monolithic, old school e-commerce, that stuff would have been really hard. But
like super hard, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but we're making it so that's like very, very easy and achievable, and that's really exciting.
Well, without getting into maybe some of the really pie in the sky stuff, I want to ask you one final question, which is, what are some of like the short term, or like in the next 5 years, kind of the future that you really see commerce adapting into, as we kind of go from, we've all been on the launch pad, right? Like, last year, February, the planet went into lockdown. Commerce had a decade worth of growth on the internet in 16 months. Now that we will have in-store, stuff again, and like, the world is kind of, quote unquote, returning to normal. What do you see kind of coming down the pike, especially as marketers are still trying to maintain their commerce and do e-commerce? What does Headless maybe do for in-store experience and online experience? What are some of the things that you see happening with e-commerce here in the next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that that's, I think, a really good thing that we're getting back out in the world and having those in-person interactions.
Absolutely. We're humans. We need it.
Yeah. So it's like I'm excited about that, and I think it's another opportunity for everyone in the e-commerce industry to sort of take that in our stride and sort of come up from the craziness of the last 18 months and go, cool, what does the future look like? I think those numbers and the trajectory will kind of slump a little bit as people return to those in-store shopping experiences, but I feel like there's going to be this blend between online and offline, and more cohesive experiences between going into a store and then going into the virtual store. And there's, they're not super different. There's kind of this blended world. Or maybe you like are in the store, but you're on your phone browsing at products. Like when retail can kind of figure that out and make that a valuable and thing worth doing for the customer, I think that's pretty exciting. I think the next 5 years of e-commerce is going to be around a lot of the stuff we've talked around personalization, multiple channels, multiple devices. Essentially, wherever the customer is, brands need to be there to have the conversations and tell their story in an authentic and unique way, tailored to that channel and to those customers. So I think that's a big thing. I think also having multiple experiences, not just like one website where all of your customers come to, but having these different break-off experiences that are maybe you're pairing with an influencer or a partner, and you're really just going after a targeted market, and you can create an experience around that, as opposed to trying to have that partner on your main site, and then maybe you lose customers because of that. So really getting smart around understanding who your audience is, and that they all kind of want different things from you based on where they're coming from. So look, I think there's lots that can happen, and marketers have quite a job ahead of them around keeping up and being smart around what decisions to make. But I think and this is something that we do a lot. It's like, understand your customers. Like talk to your customers. Try and understand like what was beneath just them wanting or like buying that product. There was some behavior, an instinct that was driving them and attracted them towards your brand, and really double down on that, and then build smart experiences and I guess discovery opportunities around those things, because that's what resonates with people. And if you look at any growing or great brand, they've really tapped into that. It's like they've got a great product, but it's all the other little subtle things underneath it that make this really, really compelling. I have to have that moment. And that's how one shoe brand stands out against the other. And I think it's global commerce means that we're all sort of competing with each other, whether you're a big brand or a small brand, but the tooling is what's exciting, and that it's leveling the playing field. So anyone can kind of wrestle with the big players.
I think small brands have a lot more opportunity than they might think. I think there's a kind of a woe is me in the small brands, but I mean, as we interact with larger companies, like they are slow, they are bloated, like they have, and small brands can be nimble, quick, and really tackle this kind of shopping experience a lot easier. So. Yeah. Well, this was a really fun conversation, Andrew. It was great to get to know you at the Headless Summit, many moons ago. I'm glad to have you on the show today, and hopefully we can have you back on the Headless Marketing Show at a later date, because obviously API first, experience centric stuff is what this show is all about, and you are right in the thick of it with Commerce.js. So really appreciate having you on the show today.
Thanks so much. Great to chat. And this is a really interesting and exciting topic, and lots to go deep on. So we're happy to come back again and talk about some other stuff.
Thanks for listening to the Headless Marketing Show. Be sure to keep coming back for more episodes and discussions with marketing leaders where we talk about e-commerce, digital marketing, and all things related to the web. Remember to subscribe to the Headless Marketing Show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find and listen to your podcasts. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Webrick, by which all of this is made possible. If you are looking for a website, go check out webrick.com. And that's the show, folks. Thank you very much for listening.